Before we get started, I just want to thank everybody for taking some time today to be on the call with us. I'm really excited about today's presentation. It's just a really cool one. I think you guys are going to get a lot out of it. So with that, I'd like to introduce today's presenter. And it's kind of funny. Cece, every time we've talked a couple times. One was at the recent Bentley thing, but it's kind of a weird way that we met. We both went to the same college. Both kind of had the same friends at that college, and ended up meeting through social media, which is kind of interesting, I thought.
Yeah, well, we were there at different times, but it is pretty trippy that we have mutual friends through Bentley, but we didn't connect and didn't know we shared those friends until we started connecting on social media. So it works. Imagine that.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, you can create connections through social media. It's unbelievable.
Novel concept.
But real quick background on CC, he's the co-founder of the Advanced Guard, and he helps companies develop marketing programs using emerging technologies and community platforms. And some of his clients include companies you may have heard of: Coca-Cola, American Eagle, HBO, Verizon, Warner Brothers, just a whole host of different companies that he's helped iron out marketing programs before. And like I said, I'm really excited to hear him speak. I've heard CC speak a few times, and he always drops a lot of knowledge and great insight, and I'm really excited to have you on the phone with us today, CC.
Well, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here, and it was fun because when we were talking about what we were going to, what you wanted me to present and what you wanted me to talk about, and you specifically mentioned this presentation that I just gave a little over a month and a half ago in Memphis, and it's something that I've been really passionate about, is the fact that I think passion is a contagious thing, and it's something that it was fun because I gave this, when I first did this presentation, the whole swine flu thing had just broken out, and I was like, do I change this first slide? What do I do? But everyone seemed to get what I was getting at and seemed to understand. So as Mike mentioned, I am the co-founder of a company called the Advanced Guard. We're a New York and Boston-based company, and we work with companies both big and small. I mean, Mike mentioned the big companies, but we also work, we've been working with an author right now named William Damon and Pure Inventions, which is a health water supplement. I mean, so we work with companies of all sizes because we really believe that social media and community and all this disruptive technology that we're playing with on a daily basis is changing the marketing landscape a lot. We don't like to think of ourselves as a social media agency. We're a marketing agency who really understands social media. So one of the things, so I looked all around, and you can find lots of definitions for passion online, and the one that resonated most with me is this: that passion is an intense emotion, compelling feeling, enthusiasm, or desire for anything. And that's kind of a wide open definition. And I think that's something that as marketers, you need to realize that, everybody shows their passion in very, very different ways. And there isn't just one way to define it or to harness it or to empower it. So it's funny because I realize now that, this doesn't work as well on a webinar because I can't get instant feedback. But one of the things I want you to do is since we're doing this via a webinar, I want you to think what you're passionate about. They should come to mind immediately. Things, that you might be passionate about. And just take a moment and think about them and then keep that in your head for a second. So these are my passions, all right? We've got music, we've got my kids, we've got photography. These are just three of my passions, but if I narrowed it down to the top three, it would be these three things. Now, one of the things I'm curious about is when you were thinking about your personal passions, did any brand come to mind? Or was it more things like, I usually get the Red Sox or my dog or things like that? What came to mind? When I first think about passions, it's not about brands. But wouldn't you kill whatever company you're working for, whatever brand you're engaged with? Wouldn't you love for your customers when they thought of passions, one of the things was that they thought of a brand? I mean, I know we're all passionate about brands. All of us drive a certain kind of car or shoot a specific kind of camera or, a computer. I mean, there's so many things that we're passionate about. But people just don't think of brands as things they're passionate about. And I think that's something that we need to change. So let's jump into what I think are components of passion, all right? So every story, right, starts the same way, right? Once upon a time. Now, this could either be the start of the best love story in the world with a happy, touchy-feely ending, or it could end up being the biggest nightmare in the world. It's one of those things where if you as a marketer or a brand are going to go out there and try to engage people's passion, you've got to start the story for them somewhere. You've got to tell them that you want to hear and see their passion. You can't just assume it's going to happen on its own. It may. It very well be. I mean, I talk about brands sometimes on my blog, if I have a good experience or a bad one. Let's face it, we all love Twittering when we have a bad experience, but also the good. But you sometimes need to give them that starting point, to start that story for them and let them know, hey, we want to hear your passion. And you've got to remember that you can't make it overcomplicated. We've been into sharing our passion since the beginning of time. I mean, these paintings on a wall, showed somebody's passion for something. Yeah, granted, it was a story. It was the way they told a story. But they're doing it now, too, whether it's blogs, whether it's talking to someone at the coffee shop, whether it's me talking in front of a panel. Whatever it is, if you're going to ask people to share their passion, you've got to make it not overly complicated. You've got to make it very simple so that anybody, you don't want if you say, a perfect example of what I mean by this is, if you say, we want your video testimonials about why you love us, right there you've added a barrier. A lot of people don't have the technology in their heads of how to do video online, or maybe they're scared to talk on video. Whereas if you just said, tell us, and kind of left it wide open, some people might do text, some people might do video, somebody might take a photo, who knows? But just keep it simple and don't make it overcomplicated so that we can get as many people as possible to share with you. And let's face it, you can't buy passion. You can't. Yeah, you can buy blog mentions. People have tried to pay for Twitter. I mean, there's the whole pay-per-post thing, which I do not believe in. But you will never, ever, ever be able to buy passion. I think passion is one of those things that you either have it or you don't. And yes, you can fake it, but eventually you're going to be caught on it. But the thing here that I want to say is you may not be able to buy it, but you can fuel it. You can encourage people to share. You can give them more reasons to share their passion. You can give them, saying thank you is an amazing thing. I mean, I'm not saying you have to incentivize with money or trips or any of that stuff. It can be as simple as saying, hey, thank you, or, putting a brand manager in front of somebody who's already passionate about it. And you can use that to drive that passion, to fuel it, to be shared with more people. And I have a blank slide. This is what happens when you go from Keynote to PowerPoint. Something got messed up there. All right.
Sorry about that.
Hey, no problem. It happens, right? That's what technology is all about. So what I wanted to do is give an example, a current example. This is not my client. I'm not involved with this at all. I just think it's a perfect example of one of these stories where a brand is asking people to fuel their passion and to share it. And this is a Ford Fiesta. It's a new car. It's not out in America yet. It's in Europe, but Ford wanted a way to get people to be trying it to get the word of mouth going. Now, this is a video, but what I want to talk about was I wanted to show that this is one of the agents. For those of you who don't know what the Fiesta movement is what they're calling it, what they did was Ford put out a call and said, hey, we're going to give 100 agents, is what they're calling the people, 100 agents a free Fiesta for 6 months. We're going to cover the gas. We're going to cover insurance. And all we ask in return is that I think it's once a month, we're going to ask you to do a quote-unquote mission. It might be something silly, it might be something goofy, and we want you to share your experiences with the car online. And I'm sure there's more legal red tape than that and whatnot, but at its heart, that's what it is. And Brooklyn Hillary is a girl who I've yet to actually meet her, but I've been following her for years in social media. I love her photography. And she's this girl who has moved from New York to California, and she never had her license before. And she had just gotten her license for New Year's this year. That was her resolution. And she entered this program and made this video to say, hey, look at me. And she was talking about how she wants to go visit people. She's never had a car. And they picked her as one of the agents. And they put together this whole community where you can go meet the agents. And I think this is the fiestamovement.com. And you can check them out and you can see the agents. The page actually looks a little different than this now. This is when they were just casting it. They highlight different agents. And I've watched a lot of this content, and it runs the whole gamut of people, analyzing the carburetors and all the tech stuff for a car, which I'm totally not into, all the way to just goofball stuff, people getting reactions on the street and taking photos. Hillary, I know, just drove cross country and back, filming she's on the road, taking pictures, and twit-picking it along the way and talking about it. And most of these people are not like traditional car enthusiasts. They're musicians, they're filmmakers, they're the whole gambit, photographers. And what's interesting is, I want to say that they got I want to entries. I'm blanking on the number, and I apologize. But I'm sure if you at Scott Monty on Twitter, ask him, he'll give you the number. He's one of the guys from Ford. But what's interesting is I love the fact that they haven't forgotten that they started this story. They asked people to share their passion, and now they're giving them a place to come and share it so that you, I, or anybody else can go find this. Okay, so what if you don't have Ford's money? Or, and Ford didn't, see, this is where I always like to crack a joke, because, Ford didn't take the tax dollars money, but, they seem to have enough. So what if you don't have money? What I want to tell you is passion, that's what I'm trying to get at, is that passion can't be bought, so no matter how much money you got to put towards something, it doesn't matter. And I got two examples of people who are doing this passion without a lot of money. And what I'm going to talk about is beta clones and junkies. I wish there was a way, we can't raise your hands, but it probably won't work as much. I'd just be curious if there are any beta clones or junkies in the audience today, because they know what I'm talking about. If you are one of these names, everybody else is going, what the heck is CC talking about? Who are these guys? Who these guys are is on the left-hand side, that is J.C. Hutchins, and on the right, it's Scott Sigler. These guys are both personal friends of mine that I've met online. I've met them several times. They're also really great independent authors. So here's an example. So Scott Sigler writes these sci-fi thriller horror novels. This guy is going to be bigger than Stephen King someday, I hope. I love his writing. But what I love he's empowered is he's let the fans who love his stories and are fanatical to create content for him. Up in the left-hand side here, you'll see that's like somebody works in special effects and they made one of the monsters from one of his films. In the center, that is the flag of Sigler. Somebody designed a flag for him. Down in the right-hand corner is a robot from one of his books that an engineering student made out of cardboard. Both the upper right and the lower left are sketches of characters in his books. He's gone out and he's just, from day one, he has said, if you're passionate, share with me. Do what you want. He hasn't stepped on anybody's toes and said, oh, you can't do that, that's my brand. He's embraced it. He's encouraged it. And he's got fans doing stuff like this. And anywhere he goes in the country or the world, he has fans who will do anything for him. His latest book that came out in print was called Contagious. He did it as a podcast. He, 7 million downloads, 31,000 unique visitors a month. He created using Drupal, he has like a community site on his thing, and he has over 6,000 profiles created. These numbers are a couple of months old, so I'm sure it's even gone up by that. And the highlight, when Contagious came out in print by an unknown author in the traditional sense, because I bet a lot of people haven't heard of him on this phone call even, he hit number 33 on the New York Times bestseller list. And why? Because he pimped and drove and asked his fans to share their love for him. And when that book came out, everybody went. They were sending up pictures, they were Twittering it, they were putting it on a Facebook profile. They were doing everything, and Scott took every opportunity to say, what can I do to make you share this love more? And he calls his fans junkies. That's where the thing up front came. Then there's J.C. J.C. Hutchins wrote a book about clones, and it is this concept of these 7 characters. The book's called Seventh Son. And he had these T-shirts where any fan could order a T-shirt and they'd get a beta clone number. And these are people who've taken pictures all over the world. I mean, the lower right-hand one's in Hong Kong or Singapore. The guy in the middle there, he's in the Middle East. My favorite one, not because I took the picture, but I did, the woman over on the left, her name is Lynette, and I went to this conference with her, and she had this beta clone with question marks over the baby on her belly. She had made this shirt. These people are fanatical. They are passionate, and they want to tell the world about this. And I mean, here's his numbers for his Seventh Son podcast. 100,000 downloads a month, 50,000 worldwide listeners. And the book hit stores this fall. And in really recent times, yesterday, J.C. Hutchins' latest personal effects dark art came out. And the numbers aren't out yet, but I know he did something where any fan who wanted a Twitter icon, avatar, he'd make one for him that was branded with the book and branded with them. I mean, I never changed my Twitter avatar for anybody, but I did for JC because he made this personal one that still had my branding on it, but it had his as well because I'm passionate about it. And what did it cost either of these guys? It didn't cost them a dime. It cost them a lot of time, but they've allowed their fans to be passionate and to help them, and They're having critical success from this. They both have book deals. J.C. Hutchins has a movie deal. There's a lot happening. And I just wanted to show examples. Yes, they're both authors, but it hits home the fact that these people really, truly embraced their fans and allowed them to build this active community. And it didn't happen overnight. It happened over a long, long period of time. So, what are my keys to success if you're going to, what's the key to passion? How are you going to, what things do you got to keep in mind? Yes, this could go on for hours talking about this, but I just want to give you the high-level things that I think you need to focus on with your brands, with your marketing programs, in order to be successful utilizing the passion space. First and foremost, you need to listen. If you are not listening, you will fail. Because anytime you build a community, people are going to talk. They're going to interact. And you need to listen to that. And people need to know you're listening. You can't, it can start out, don't get me wrong, it can start off very passively where you're just listening and kind of being on the sidelines. But if you're going to truly build that community around you, you've got to listen and interact. And just really pay attention to what people are saying. Don't freak out. Listen to what they're saying. And, let's face it, they're going to give you good advice. If they are passionate enough to come to your community and to help build it, then everything they say is out of passion for the brand, even if it's negative. If they're there, unless they're a troll, let's face it, there are internet trolls everywhere. But unless they're a troll, they're there for a reason. They want to help you. So listen to them. And one of the things this is a Native American saying that I've always liked, and it takes 1,000 voices to tell a single story. The more people you have talking about your brand, reviewing it, the better. And trust me, it'll be, the honesty of it will come forward. That if it's just one person singing the praises, it doesn't drive home. I used to have this, my good buddy Dan Gergone that I used to do a radio show with will totally relate to this. The fact that I used to have this rule where I needed to have 3 friends tell me an album was great before I would buy it if I'd only heard a single. And so that's what I'm getting at. The more voices telling something, the better it is. And don't forget the humans, guys. Way too many people hide behind that, we're a big brand. We have to talk a certain way. No, you don't. You're humans. Your brand has humans working for you. Unless you're a total robot company, you have faces, you have people. They do things outside of work than just work for your company. Don't forget to make them part of it. This whole thing came about when I saw a blog post by Robert Scoble where he was talking about why so few brands have pictures of real people on their website. It's all stock photography and stuff. Why not show the people who work for your company to add that face? Because we as humans like to talk to other humans. It's a novel concept. It's how society works. But don't forget that. Get out there and talk. If all you're doing is hiding behind the brand and talking with the brand voice, it's going to get lost. Let the people talk. Let your employees talk. If they work for you, they're going to talk. Just, give them some guidelines and then let them go. And teach them along the way. If they step out of line by accident, rein them in. But just don't forget the human side. And whatever you do, if you build a community and then go away and don't do anything with it, it's just going to die. It's going to get stagnant, and it might be worse than it started with. So you got to give them stuff to talk about. Here Ford gave cars. You see a lot of things of bringing people, bringing bloggers or influencers to an event or to a location. I know, I've been invited lately to a lot of restaurant openings and people, giving them something to talk about, whether, have it here, we're going to feed you tonight, or go watch a movie premiere. Give them a reason to talk. Don't just say, hey, we built this community, don't you think we're great? Give them exact things that they can react to and go and Twitter about and write a blog post about or tell a friend about. Give them things to talk about. And then let them speak. Let them speak in their own voice. One of the things I was really watching closely with that Ford example was I was wondering if somebody would do something a little off color, maybe not quite, on brand, what would they do? And so far, they've been letting them just do it in their own voice. If I write a blog post, you can tell that I wrote it and that somebody else didn't force me the words. Yeah, you can give them your talking points all you want. You can give them the blurb about, my company is company, but you've got to let them speak in their voice, because that's the only way that the true passion is going to come through, is if they're speaking from their heart and not being fed everything they need to say. And then you got to give it time to grow. This is not going to happen overnight. If you're an agency or working with clients, please make sure you're setting realistic goals. Lay that plan out. Maybe you only have 3 months to build it, or maybe you have 12 months. If you do have whatever the time frame, literally lay out goals of here's the milestones we're gonna hit, and then strive to hit them. And if you don't hit them fast enough, figure out how you can. Okay, this didn't work. And if something goes faster, figure out how you can leverage that more. But more often than not, to build a real active and engaging community, you've got to give it time to grow. I'm very curious to see what Ford does with this after the 6 months, because I know the program's only 6 months, and I'm curious what they're going to do afterwards. It'll be interesting to see, and I don't know the answer. But they realized they couldn't just do this for 2 weeks and it would work. They went for 6 months, and that, obviously something, especially a program of that scale, is costing them dollars every day longer. But it'll be interesting to see what they do. But literally, communities take time. I mean, think about anything you're involved with, whether it's a church group or an online group, whatever it is. It takes time to really get momentum and get things going. And let's face it, online, you can definitely get something to snowball out of control really, really, really fast. But you can't control it. You can't predict it. You never know. And what I love about this is, literally 2 days before I gave this presentation last time, I saw this on a friend of mine's Tumblr site. And it was, I went looking for the quote, and if anybody's ever found out who, I guess every place I came up with it online is, it's anonymous. But I just really, really think it kind of fit all the things. If you kind of play on the metaphor over here, it plays with how someone comes and shows their passion for a brand. It's not by chance, and you don't stay in love by chance, and it's work. So, it's not by chance that someone's going to start showing their passion for you. And it is going to take work on the behalf of your brand to keep them in love and keep them sharing their passion with the world with your brand. And then, you know what? No one suddenly becomes unpassionate. It's a choice. They now say, I'm going to buy this other car. I'm going to buy this other camera. I'm going to go now to this other pizza joint. So keep this in mind. It starts a choice, it ends a choice, and in the middle you got to work a lot. And I really, really thought that kind of drove home the point of what I was trying to get at, and it was just serendipity that I discovered, and I was really happy. And that, I wanted to get through this, so I wanted to get into questions. I know we've got a lot of people on the line, and I wanted to get into the questions so we can answer your questions. And here's all my contact information. Please, if afterwards, if we don't, because I know there might be more questions. I can see a lot of hands up. If after you have a question, seriously, feel free to email me, find me on Twitter, whatever it is, and I'd be happy to answer your questions and talk more about this.
That's great. Yeah, seriously, we already got a ton of questions, and there's people are quoting you all over the place on Twitter right now, so
cool.
Good stuff. But before I get to the Q&A, I'm going to keep people from one last sales pitch from awareness, and that's just our upcoming sessions that we have. So we are doing one June 18th with WebEx, believe it or not. We're doing a session on how WebEx uses social media and how to really facilitate conversation within a community. We're also doing one on the 24th with Jason Falls and another one on July 16th with Brian Solis. And if you haven't had a chance, check out both those guys online. Both really, really smart, intelligent, great guys, two friends of mine that I think you're going to enjoy their sessions as well. Finally, the last thing I wanted to pitch was if any of you are going to Enterprise 2.0 in Boston, in a couple of weeks, we're having a tweet up on the 23rd. For more information, you can either go to our website, awarenessnetworks.com, or you can just ping me with a note, and I can send you more details on it. But everybody on the line, of course, is invited, and tell your friends, all that kind of stuff. And here's some contact information for me as well if you need to get in touch with me after. If you have any questions about, awareness or how to get to the tweet up, or, I find people always have questions about where they can go to get free drinks. You know what I mean?
Always important.
Yeah, that's the most important thing, right? So one of the questions that came in a bunch, CC, that during your talk was around B2B companies building passion, especially if they're selling something that frankly is boring. How do you build a passion in a community like that, or do you?
Yeah, and it's funny. It's one of those things where I think it comes up every time I talk about anything social media. It's the two questions that seem to come up is B2B and nonprofits. How do they leverage it? And I think one of the funny. I wish I had a case study of somebody doing a lot of B2B. The only one I know of is Cisco is doing. They have a B2B. It's a glorified discussion forums more than anything, is my understanding. This is all secondhand knowledge. Where they've engaged and they started out as sort of like a support group, customer support, but it's kind of grown into more of a community where these engineers are sharing how they're using the product and whatnot. And I think one of the key things that B2B how this could benefit is usually B2B know a little bit better who their customers are, very targeted, the type of people they want. So I think building a community, you can really go after them a little bit more aggressively than, say, if I sell phones or I'm looking around my desk or something, if you sell, it's kind of, if you have just a generic, 20 to 35-year-old male to female in America, that's kind of a big thing. But usually a B2B has a much defined scope of where they're shooting to get clients from. And I think that allows you to go after and target them. I would argue, I think B2B, your consumer a little bit better, the person you're trying to connect with.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, I think, I don't know if you're seeing it, but B2B has definitely been kind of, I don't know if the laggard is the right word, but they've definitely been behind in terms of where kind of the B2C crowd is in terms of trying out social media. Do you have any, other than, we talked a little bit about the audience and just that they can target them better, but in your experiences, are you seeing reasons why people are why they're taking so long to adopt stuff?
I don't know. Well, I get concerned when people are, I try to figure out, I don't know if it's they're scared or if they just don't think it works for them. I've talked to a couple people, just talked, at conferences or whatnot offline, and they're eager to, but, I think they're running into the same roadblocks a lot of the B2C is they don't have the budget for it, or they don't have the buy-in from senior staff to do it and whatnot, and at least, and I don't know, maybe if B2B is a little bit more scared of experimentation. I'm not sure what it is. It just...
Well, you hit on something right there that I think is important. I'll share a story with you before I tell you, but I was at a B2B company that really wanted to get involved in social media. And I had done my homework on them before I went out to, kind of give them our pitch. So I knew they had stuff going on LinkedIn, or I thought they did, some stuff going on Facebook. And I was on with the CMO, and he said, I said, so are you doing anything on LinkedIn? He said, no, we're not doing anything. And I said, well, that's funny, because you got a bunch of people with, your logo, and they're talking about it. He said, yeah, we issued cease and desist orders against that last week. These are people who are passionate enough about this, and I'm telling you, it's a boring B2B company, but they're out there talking about the fact that they're using this product, and they're really excited about it, and they want to share it with their friends, but at the same time, the company's trying to stop them from doing it because, they look at it as copyright infringement.
Well, and you see that, look at every music fan site, movie fan site. I think movies are finally starting to come around a little bit better, but, the cease and desist mentality just has got to go. If someone's that passionate about you should figure out a way to work with it. And most people, I think, would understand if you came at them and said, hey, you do realize you're, infringing on our copyright, but we want to figure out a way to do it right so that we both benefit. You just don't hear many stories about that happening. It's always the cease and desist letters and sicking lawyers.
Absolutely. So you touched on something in one of your answers that I want to explore a little bit, and that's around the idea of getting executive buy-in at companies. Yep. How are people successful at getting buy-in at an executive level for programs that they're running?
It's crucial. You have to, you have one of two choices. If you're in your company and you're dying to do something, you have one of two choices. You either get senior executive buy-in or you get and do it rogue. And I'm not advocating the second one. I'm just saying I've seen that happen a lot, where somebody's got enough power where they can do something on their own and they get to buy in later. But I think if you're going to do it, you have to. And let's face it, if you go to an executive and you say, we want to build a community because we want our fans to be more passionate about us, he's going to laugh at you. What you've got to do, he or she, sorry, I don't want to generalize, but one of the things you've got to do is you've got to tell them either how you're going to make them more money or how you're going to save them money, one or the other. And saving money can be, doing something more efficiently. We can do less television spots. It can be a lot of things.
Right.
Go in, and you have to convince them that this is going to make the company run better and make them money or save them money. And then I guarantee you'll get the executive's attention to at least listen to you. But if you just come in and say it's going to give us a warm, fuzzy feeling, no executive is going to go for that. You have to show them why it's going to make the company better to do it. And then you have to also make sure, though, when you get that buy-in, that you're setting real expectations, because you may need to say, listen, this is an experiment. We're not quite sure how this is going to go, but here's how we think it will go. And keep them updated. And when you have successes, share them. Tell them that. And go, look, here's what we did. Measure everything that you can measure and try and keep updating the executives. Because, if you can show that to an executive, they're gonna be like, all right, and give you a little more rope to hang yourself with each time, hopefully.
A little more rope to hang yourself with. I like that.
Well, hopefully you don't hang yourself with it, but that's
yeah,
the trick.
I
mean, you know.
Oh, man. I've had probably too much rope to hang myself with, I think.
Yeah.
That leads actually to one of the questions, and just came up from Angela, who asked, what are some of the pitfalls of building a community?
Well, some of the pitfalls, I mean, you start organizing people around a brand, and obviously some of those people are going to get, this is going to sound more powerful than others. You know, there's obviously going to be influencers who are going to kind of rise to the top of your community and whatnot, and if you upset them or say something, if you built an active community around your brand and something bad goes wrong with your brand, whether a product fails or whatever, it can be a million things, then you've got this community that you've got to deal with right away because they're going to be the first and the loudest to start yelling. And you've got to be ready for that. I mean, I think that's the biggest pitfall. These people, especially because, I mean, let's face it, you're passionate about, take whatever sports team you're a fan of.
Oh, come on.
You're passionate
Red
about
Sox,
it.
come on.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm being generic for the audience.
No, I know. I think everybody on the line is actually a Red Sox fan. That's
are they? Okay, I know at least a couple are out there, just looking at the attendee list. But, I mean, you know what I mean? When they mess up or do something wrong, you're the first to yell and to scream and be like, why'd they trade him? Or what's wrong with Big Papi? You know, all these things. But, you know, I think you got to be ready for that. If you build this community, you got to be ready for what they're going to say, and the good and the bad. And I think the other pitfall is if you do build it and they come and you're not an active participant, you know, you built them this beautiful, you know, town square to come play in, and then you just sit on the sidelines. That's bad. I mean, you can't do that.
Absolutely. And so here, there's a bunch of questions about ROI, and I think one of the best ones is how do you measure passion? And I think it ties into ROI, but I'm interested in getting your thoughts on it.
Yeah, measuring passion, we were having this conversation. I was on another panel this morning, and we were discussing this afterwards about how exactly do you measure it. And there's some things you can do, you know, some real small-time tactical things like, you know, something as simple as, I mean, I'm getting really tactical, like a promo code, and only give it to the people in your community and see if they use it and share it, and then track it. I mean, I know Dell, with their Twitter account, they share promo codes out there. You know, you see a lot of people, actually I know the example I gave there, Scott Sigler's doing that right now with pre-ordering his newest book. He gave some fans, I'm one of them, gave us promo codes so you can track every time that's used to see if it's actually working or not. You know, obviously you can measure blog posts, you know, see what they're saying, measure sentiment. There's tools out there that will help you measure the sentiment. You know, I think it's easier to measure if you have a starting point. Like if right now, say you were a brand and you had a horrible online sentiment, everybody was complaining about you online, and then you built this community and you engaged them, you know, and you could track the sentiment change over the course of the 6 months or whatever. That would be very powerful. It all depends on what you're already measuring and how you measure success.
And what the goals are, right? I mean,
exactly. Are you trying to drive, is it a new product launch? Is it better customer service? I mean, it's a tough question because it kind of depends on what you want to do, and some of this stuff is still unmeasurable, which is, you know, difficult to tell anybody, but some of it is. The fact that I'm passionate about certain brands, they can't measure that every time that someone says, hey, Cece, what camera should I buy? And I tell somebody what camera, and they go buy it. Nobody can track that, you know, because nobody has a form saying, oh, Cece told me. And they don't know who that is. So that's what I'm getting at. Is some of that stuff you can't track, and you'll never be able to.
Absolutely. And, you know, you want to talk passion. I made the Red Sox comment, and it turns out that on the line we have Cardinals fans, Cubs fans, and even, you know, the dreaded Yankees fans on the line as well. So.
Oh, can we kick the Yankees fans out? No.
No, actually, I think they should stay on because, I mean, with the way the Sox have been playing this year, especially against the Yankees, it's great to kind of rub it in a little bit.
There you go.
Kathleen, we're just kidding, by the way. We're just joking around. So one question that just came in, just tying up that last point that you were making. Now they're saying let's talk about the Super Bowl. That's not good.
Well, that's going to get me in trouble because I'm a Dolphins fan, so diehard Miami Dolphins fan.
Oh man, well.
I'm outed.
Yeah, I'm not even going to bring that up then. I'm not even going to go there. People and Blue Jays and wow, there's a lot. Do you have any examples of companies actually turning a bad situation, so something that's gone bad online, and actually turn it into something good?
Well, I mean, over the long haul, I think Comcast has done that lately. They've done a pretty good job online of, a couple of years ago they had the service guy sleeping on the couch, and now they're sort of the darling case study of a company changing things around. I mean, granted, yeah, Comcast still has plenty of problems, don't get me wrong, but at least online they're doing a really good job of changing the sentiment. And I'd be curious if they measured that over the long haul. I'm sure they didn't, but maybe they did. I mean, you look a couple years ago when everybody was blogging that video of the guy sleeping on the couch and Comcast sucks and da-da-da-da-da. And now you see everybody talking about Comcast cares and, oh, wow, they helped me with my television and stuff. The sentiment, at least in our circles that we travel, has definitely changed greatly. And I think they've done a really good job of changing, and I think Ford's been interesting to watch over the last year. GM's trying over the last year. With all the problems going on, they're trying to change sentiment online. I don't know if it's working or not, but they're trying awfully hard.
I have one too that's kind of more of a B2B example. I don't know if you've heard this story yet, but I'll share it with everybody. It was so I used to run marketing and sales at a company called SalesNet. We were a big competitor of Salesforce.com, and around 2006, I forget the month, but it was in 2006, Salesforce started to have, and I'm sure a lot of people on the phone know who Salesforce.com is, one of the pioneers in the SaaS space. They started having really bad long downtimes. And I'm not talking, middle of the day or, middle of the night type of stuff. I'm talking end of quarter, sales guys trying to get their numbers into the system, and they couldn't access the server. So people started blogging about it. Someone created a site called gripeforce.com where people were just jumping on and talking about how bad Salesforce.com was. And what Salesforce did, to their credit, and I think they're a great marketing company. I think from the beginning, the no software thing, they've been brilliant about it. They came on, they actually listened to what everybody was saying, and they launched a site called TrustForce. And basically all TrustForce did was let people know what was going on with the servers, what they were doing to fix everything, and how long it was going to take to get things back up. And all they did was just listen to what everybody was saying online and responded to the biggest issue that was that Salesforce wasn't communicating. And by doing that, they completely flipped the sentiment that they had because of all these bad downtimes to customers that were really supportive of what it was that they were doing and creating a community around it, which I think is a cool example of actually turning something really bad into something really, really positive. So
I think that's a great example.
That's my Salesforce example. Competitors, One other question that just came in is and you probably have a lot of experience with this too, is in building a community, shouldn't you assign someone to actively manage and moderate, most likely, the community and deal with any issues that potentially arise? Shouldn't there be some person at your company that his or her whole job is just to monitor everything going on?
Oh yeah, you see, most times that title is called a community manager. Seems to be the hot title as of late, and I think for sure because then it gives that person, gives everybody in the community a connection, a name, a face. And plus, I think you do, because you can't really have it be a passive, someone's have the time allocated in their job description to do it. Whether it's full-time or not is a question, because maybe it's not that active of a community, but I do think, the role of a community manager is an important one because it's somebody that has the authority to, talk to anybody, answer questions, engage with people, share with people, and it's people like I said, that was the thing kind of back to where I said don't forget the humans, that it's more about, it gives them a face of somebody to talk to. I mean, let's face it, I know she's a friend of ours, but when I think of Radiant 6 now, I think of Amber, because she's their community manager, and that does open a whole bunch of other questions about, well, what happens when Amber leaves, if she ever leaves Radiant 6, or if Scott Monty ever leaves Ford, what happens then? I mean, that's a valid question because so much gets built up around that person, the connection with the brand, and, there's no easy answer to that because it's something that everybody's figuring out right now, but getting that person in charge and involved is critical.
So what does happen in that point? I mean, because in some ways, you're right, there's kind of there's a mix between someone's personal brand, like Scott Monty at Ford, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a personal brand of Scott Monty, but he's really affiliated with Ford. What happens if Scott decides to go, and I know this isn't going to happen, but if he decides to go work at GM or some other company, out there?
I mean, it's a really valid question. I mean, I think the first time that, at least in our circles, we had that happen, I mean, back when Robert Scoble left Microsoft, everybody was like, oh, what's going to happen? And unfortunately, it was interesting. Nobody stepped up at Microsoft to fill his shoes and to kind of be that outspoken. I mean, for the longest time, when you thought, at least when I thought of Microsoft Online, I thought of Scoble. I went to Scoble if I wanted to gripe about Microsoft or to find out what was going on with Microsoft. And they kind of dropped the ball and didn't do anything. At least if they do, I don't know what they're doing now. And that's weird. That's a weird thing. I mean, if Scott did leave, it would definitely, I mean, when he joined Ford, it was weird. I mean, I was friends with Scott beforehand, and all of a sudden, for him to, he's one of those guys that he sort of lost his personal brand a little bit because it did get all consumed by Ford.
True, yeah.
There's not enough examples out there to give. I think companies have to think about that and be very careful about it. I think the example of Comcast Cares is a good example where, honestly, yes, we are all connected with Frank, and yes, we all know him behind the account. Some of us know him. But at the end of the day, if he all of a sudden disappeared, if the concept of Comcast Cares and that account and the same service level continued to move forward beyond Frank leaving, I think things would be okay. But at the same time, if they, that I think is a really good example where it's a blending of the brand, but at the end of the day, it's still Comcast first.
Right. So just a couple of questions came in. I mentioned the drinking party earlier. We're going to have the tweet up at Enterprise 2.0. It's not up on our website yet. It's not up on Awareness Networks yet. But if you'd like to come and you're going to be in Boston on the 23rd, we'd love to have you come by. Just tweet me at Boston Mike. That's my name on Twitter. Or you can just send me an email at mlewis@awarenessnetworks.com. And I'm happy to make sure you're on the invite list and you're included on everything. One question just came in from Jeremy. What is the future of online communities? Are there any trends that you're seeing that you think are going to have big implications on the future of communities?
I think the communities are going to move beyond being just online. I mean, I think you're already starting to see them move so they're mobile, so people can connect. I'm still waiting for the application that allows me, as a fan of whatever, actually, no, there is one. I mean, Nine Inch Nails, for those of you who don't know, they're a huge band. I mean, what with their community, they had an online community, it was basically a glorified Ning site and whatnot, but they pushed out an iPhone application. So right now, if I pulled up my iPhone, I could push a button and say, show me within 5 miles from me how many Nine Inch Nails community fans there are right now. Or I can do 10 miles, 15 miles. And what they're doing with that is at concerts, they're finding it to be very beneficial, where you can go to a concert and say, who's the really crazy fans here who also have this application? And you can find each other, and you can text right from there. And I think that's a huge shift in the right direction, because now I know, I would love if I was in a new, I travel a lot, and I'd love to be able to pop into a town and see if something's going on with like-minded people. I know that's kind of hard, and there's privacy concerns and all that stuff, but I think that's going to be a big shift, is moving beyond having to be at a computer to have this community. And I hope people, do more real and face-to-face events, because, too many people get stuck behind the computer and kind of forget that, the best part of social media is the social part.
Exactly, yeah, meeting people and actually creating people, just like you said, you said it best, meeting people that have similar interests that you didn't know about before, that now you can connect with in real easy ways and, create a relationship with. That's what it's all about.
And even if you're not a fan of Nine Inch Nails, I highly suggest checking out the application, because I think what Trent Reznor, who is the lead singer and creator of Nine Inch Nails, is he's a marketing, he's the guy pushing boundaries beyond what people are used to, and I think it's just really interesting, and I think that's just a taste of what we're going to see coming down the road.
I totally agree. Well, a couple questions that have come in are around, both nonprofit and highly regulated industries, and how you create communities inside those areas where, organizations that, like healthcare or financial services, where they're very, very regulated, but they still want to create communities around it. Do you have any examples of that, or seen any companies that have done that well?
It's funny. I know I have some good friends trying to do this in the pharmaceutical arena, and of course that's, wicked regulated. There's my Boston coming out. And I think one of the keys, I haven't actually taken part in one yet, but I think what's interesting about it is, unlike other places where I joked earlier about going rogue and doing your own thing, I think if you're going to do it in a regulated industry, you've really got to you're going to spend more time up front on strategy and figuring out rules and stuff, and I think that's a good thing. I'm all for in any marketing program really taking the time to plan things out. What's the ultimate thing that could go wrong? Figuring those things out ahead of time. But if you're going to be in a regulated industry, you've got to think about that extra hard and really have buy-in and make sure you plan things out. I know I saw one site, I can't remember what it was. It was around a specific drug. And they just kind of built a community. It was like, it was like a cancer drug, or, it was something where people basically came together in their community, and they weren't necessarily passionate about the drug, but they were passionate about the effects it was having, and people were sharing their stories of when they got diagnosed and how they were coping with the different side effects, and it was kind of interesting to watch. And in that case, the drug kind of had like a hands-off approach, kind of watched it happen. They weren't, engaged as much. On the nonprofit side, I mean, you're seeing things. I think there's a lot of potential there. You're seeing things. I know the American Cancer Society has done a lot of stuff.
They just had that you make your birthday.
Yep.
They had a whole birthday program that they just launched through Facebook.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of neat. They're doing a lot of neat things. I remember I spoke at a conference probably a year ago now with one of the guys doing it, and they were viewing it as an experiment to figure out what they could do. When I gave this presentation in Memphis, I was talking to a gentleman from St. Jude's, and they're doing all kinds of stuff figuring out this space because, any place that they can get people who are excited and that they can up their donations is something they're excited about. So I think there's a lot of potential there. We're seeing it right now with, you want to talk about a cause. I mean, a good friend of mine, Drew Olenoff, just got diagnosed with cancer, and he started this whole blame Drew's cancer, and now they're raising money for cancer research. And if you see these Twitters going around with the hashtag blame Drew's cancer, it's all a joke, but it's for a good. There's this whole community being built around this one guy with cancer and trying to find donations for general cancer research. I just think it's kind of interesting how these things can pop up.
So I'm going to read this next question to you, and you can help me interpret it.
Okay.
And basically what it is what about passionate fans, like people that are on Twitter that are passionate about a specific topic, that have different opinions than what the brand would like them to be saying? The whole, and it's in parentheses, the whole who owns your brand issue.
Look, 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, at a conference I went to, which was the conference that made me realize I had to go into this space because so many people didn't understand it. They said it the best I've ever heard it, and they said, you as a brand cannot be a drill sergeant. All you can hope for is to be a cruise director. And I still have yet to hear anybody say it better, where you can only guide them because, let's face it, people are talking about your brand right now, and they're going to continue. There's nothing you can say to me, there's nothing any brand in the world can say to me to say, you can't say that, because I can, and I have short of suing me, they can do that, but they can't, they can't drive the way it is. And that's kind of what I was trying to get to the point, is that everybody's voice is different. Watch Gary Vaynerchuk talk about wine. Nobody else can. I'm sure most vineyards don't want a guy talking that way about their vineyard, but they love it. But you can't question whether that guy's passionate or not, one way or the other. And I think that's where I was trying to get at, that you have to let them speak. And yes, be that cruise director. Give them guiding points. Say, hey, I mean, you can be nice. Be really honest. Don't come at them with PR and lawyer speak, but come at them and say, hey, you know what, we love your passion about our product or our service. We love it, but you know what, can you stop dropping the F-bombs, or, could you say this, and, have you ever thought, that's not quite right what you said. I mean, if you have a real honest conversation, and yes, you're tiptoeing on a landmine when you do this because, how dare a brand talk to me, but honestly, if you're human and you're direct and you're honest about it and don't ever talk down to somebody or talk at somebody, talk to them. It's amazing what good old-fashioned, what your mom and dad taught you about, do unto others, how that kind of comes back. And
it's like almost back to basics, right?
Yeah, it really is, and yet we all seem to have forgotten that, Have kids and you quickly remember all those rules. but it's true.
Yeah,
it's tough. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know brands, it's an age-old question where you could make the commercial and everybody would say your tagline, and it doesn't work that way anymore. And it's, as more and more people get empowered, and the kids growing up today, they're even more likely to just speak their mind. So
absolutely. So a couple more quick questions for you. Is there a general length of time that you recommend as kind of a minimum time frame to allow a community to grow? Is there even one?
I don't think. That's impossible to answer. Really, how can you? It's impossible. There's no minimum. I don't think you can answer that, just because it depends. If Apple opened a community site tomorrow, applefanatics.com, they'd probably have an influx of people all of a sudden.
Right.
But if Joe's Sub Shop, here's another example. A perfect small. There is a bowling alley and restaurant in my town here, small town, Massachusetts, and I found out they have a fan page. And the last time I looked at it, when I first joined it, they had 25 fans. Now they have 80 fans on Facebook. This is a small mom and pop. Is that an active community, or how are they measuring results? But the fact is, they've got people who are, and they push out coupons and whatnot, and they're in it for the long haul. Obviously, it's not costing them anything to build this fan page and push out coupons and stuff. But they're slowly building this fan, and all of a sudden I saw one of the guys I'm friends with on Facebook, who's, our sons play lacrosse together. I said, "Oh, dude, you like pins too?" And I found this out through. He's like, "How do you know that?" I said, "Through Facebook." So we started talking about it offline, and it builds slow. There's no way you can put a minimum on it. Honestly, if you build, the other thing is, if you're trying to set a minimum, you're not looking at this right, because you have to think about this long term.
I appreciate everybody taking some time with us today. I think, it's always fun for me to chat with CC. I always feel like I learned a ton of stuff from him, and I hope everybody on the line did as well. If you have any questions, I'm going to leave CC's contact information up there. Feel free to get in touch with him directly. I can tell you, just by experience, it's easier to go through Twitter, probably with both CC and I, to get in touch with us. So if you have any questions, feel free to send them over. And I know if we had a bunch of questions that we weren't able to get to, what we'll do is we'll take them down and try to answer them one-on-one. So really appreciate everybody taking some time, and hope you can come back on some of our next sections. So thanks for coming, everybody.